Teachers! My name is Colette Hiller and I am a children's writer, and my last book, Colossal Words for Kids, recently won the Clipper Award for the best children's poetry book in Britain. Today I'm going to talk to you about my glorious new picture book with Sourcebooks called The Elephant and the Piano. This is a story about a sad elephant in Thailand who was very miserable and lonely and wouldn't play with any of the other elephants. And what happened when a man called Paul came along and brought his piano and played piano music to this elephant, and how the elephant responded and changed and suddenly became less lonely. Now I'm going to tell you some really nice things you can try to do in your classroom around this book. The first thing is to do the elephant dance. Now Sourcebooks have a workshop link which you can reach, but essentially this is what you have to do. First of all, you have to play some music, preferably the music that the elephant Bonte listened to, which was Beethoven, Moonlight Sonata. Now when Bonte the elephant heard this music, it was the first time he'd ever heard music in his life. The children should start by just listening and not doing anything, moving just nothing. And then slowly they're going to begin to sway to the music and move their trunks up and up and up to the music, and let them do the elephant dance. And one important thing to tell the children is that elephants are surprisingly light on their feet. They make no noise when they're walking or dancing. And here's another thing that you can do. In the book, Bonte the elephant never speaks. The reason for that is that this is a true story, and Bonte doesn't speak English. But we know what he did. He swayed and he moved and he danced when he heard the music. But what was he thinking? This is the time for the children to write a speech bubble to tell us what Bonte was thinking. He'd never seen a piano before. What might he have thought? And then, what were his thoughts as he heard the music? Put the children into pairs perhaps and ask them to write speech bubbles for Bonte. I hope you enjoy using this in the classroom and that you enjoy doing the elephant dance and writing the elephant speech bubble. Bye-bye.
Hello, teachers. My name is Scott Rothman. I'm the author of Judgy Bunny and the Terrible Beach. I've also written a few other books. Some are called Attack of the Underwear Dragon, Return of the Underwear Dragon. I had a book come out last summer called Kitty Bunkport. But I am here today because I wanted to talk to you about this little adorable bunny with her arms crossed, quietly judging everything, and how I think she can be used in your classrooms. So I got the idea for this book because I saw a picture that Lindsay Hunter, the illustrator, drew and put on her Instagram, and it was of just a plump bunny with a little word bubble coming out of her mouth saying, "I am not impressed." And there was something about that that just spoke to me. And what spoke to me was this bunny obviously being judgmental, because I realized I, like a lot of people, can be a bit of a judgy bunny myself. And when I really started to write the book and think about the themes of the book, I realized very quickly that I judge things and think something's going to be bad before I even try it, and kind of dismiss it because I'm scared. And it's a little embarrassing to admit, but I do believe this is a pretty universal feeling. And that is why I kind of judge anything and everything. I'm judging this video I'm making as I make it. So, but I do think this is a thing that a lot of us have. And I definitely think a lot of the kids in your classrooms have it. And when I read this book in classrooms, which I've been doing a lot of recently, I talk about the difference of being a judgy bunny and a brave bunny. And I read the book and I point out different parts of the book where judgy bunny is being judgy, and the kids say, I point to them and they say, judgy bunny. And then when she finally makes a turn and learns, to be open to new things and new people, thanks to this very nice bunny that helps her along the way. And a lot of us judgy bunnies need nice bunnies to kind of hold our hands through life and tell us it's not going to be that bad. I know my wife definitely plays that role in my life. But I'll point to them when judgy bunny is being brave and they say brave bunny back to me. And I do think it's a really good kind of book that can be used as kind of a Trojan horse to talk about some of these things. And I say a Trojan horse because I think like it just kind of appears to be kind of a funny, a little bit silly, but I do think it's got this deeper meaning, and I do think it could be really helpful in the classroom. When my kids were going to school, I have 3 kids, and when they were going to school, they talked a lot, or their teachers talked a lot about being persistent and having a growth mindset and this idea of yet. And I do think that this book kind of speaks to a lot of that Judgy Bunny needs to be persistent and needs to be brave and to overcome her fear, because that's what's kind of driving all of her judginess, for lack of a better term, is that fear. And she might be scared of the terrible beach at the moment, but she just hasn't gotten comfortable with the idea of the beach yet, which is something I really remember from when my kids were growing up. So, I think there's a lot. Sourcebooks has a lot of great activities, which I think are easily accessible on, I think they sent a link for that kind of stuff of games and things, activities you can do related to the book. I particularly like there's where kids can make their own comics and fill in the word bubbles of what Judgy Bunny is saying at any given time. And I think that's a really fun one. My wife, who's an educator as well, talked about doing these popcorn activities that you could go around the room and throw a beach ball to each kid. And when the kid has a beach ball, that they can kind of say a time that they were being judgy and that they learned how to be brave, and then they can pass the beach ball. But I will leave those activities to the pros, which are you. Thank you so much for all you do. And thank you for listening to this. And I hope you enjoy Judgy Bunny and the Terrible Beach. Bye.
It's Mr. Greg. I'm so excited to be partnering with our friends Sourcebooks for their Elevate virtual session. I love Sourcebooks because, number one, their books are so incredibly inclusive and diverse and represent all of our families, all of our students. They're just such inclusive books, and that's one of the reasons we love Sourcebooks. The other reason I love Sourcebooks is because of these books. The How to Catch books are one of our favorite series in my classroom and in our home. Our daughter loves them. I love using them in my classroom. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about why we love these books so much and how to use them in the classroom. So I remember, I had seen some How to Catch books around and never really read them, didn't really know much about them. And then I was looking for a book to read for St. Patrick's Day, and I picked up How to Catch a Leprechaun and read it to my class, and they absolutely loved it. They laughed. We had amazing conversations. They were making great predictions. They were noticing, and they just absolutely loved it. And anytime my kids love a book like that, anytime it elicits that kind of a response, I'm all in. And so that's what turned me on to the How to Catch books. And now these are a staple in our classroom because there are so many of them, right? They have so many amazing ones. How to Catch a Dinosaur, Santa Claus, How to Catch a Monster, a Mermaid, Gingerbread Man. There's the new one, How to Catch a Groundhog. I love all of them. I love the consistency of the book. So once you've read one, then the kids are going to know the style of the book. They're going to know the premise of the book. And I love that. And one of the things I love is that it helps the kids make connections. And so they will connect back to all of the other How to Catch books that we've read. And we know how important those connections are, and they can make connections to their own lives as well. And so we love that part of the books. I love the vocabulary. This is one of probably my number one thing about the How to Catch books that I love, is there are some really powerful vocabulary words throughout all of the books. And that's a huge gap in our students across the board. Every teacher I talk to, vocabulary is something we struggle with. So anytime books have that really strong, rich vocabulary, we love that. And so these have great vocabulary. So we make sure that when we come across those words, we do an explicit vocabulary lesson on those words. So for example, when I'm doing How to Catch a Mermaid, hey you two, come follow me. I need you on my team. The water's where we need to plan our mermaid catching scheme. And so I'd be like, and this is how I teach vocabulary in my class. So let me start over. Hey you two, come follow me. I need you on my team. The water's where we need to plan our mermaid catching scheme. A scheme is a plan. And then I keep going. Then at the end, we do explicit vocabulary instruction on those vocabulary words. So when I'm reading, I'll do it kind of on the fly, just, a scheme is a plan, and keep going. Then afterwards, we come back and do really in-depth explicit vocabulary instruction. Of course, these books are great for making predictions. And so we do this lots of different ways. What do you think the book is going to be about? Oh, it's going to be about a mermaid. Well, how do you think they catch the mermaid? Do they catch the mermaid? And then what we'll do is I reach into my bag of tricks and pull out my first trap. Ooh, what do you think the first trap is? And the kids will have some ideas. So we make those predictions. I'll catch my monster right away. It'll be a snap. And then I'm like, ooh, what was the trap? Oh, it was the shark. Okay, did it work? What do you think? Do you think the shark trap worked or no? Right? And then we make those predictions, right? So that's how we use it for predictions. We talked about those connections between the stories and between, those personal connections, those text to self. Another thing that we talk about and that these books are really good for is that we can learn from the text and from the illustrations. So sometimes we learn from the pictures even when the words don't tell us things. So, okay, he's stronger than I thought, but I'm not finished yet. I'll catch him in my super sticky ninja nabbing net. So it's a super sticky ninja nabbing net, but in the picture we can see it's silly string. So we're talking about, well, we know it's a super sticky ninja nabbing net, but what is that? And so the illustration tells us it's silly string. So we talk about, what did we learn from the text? What do we learn from the illustrations? Another thing that we love, and of course, this is really the heart of the How to Catch books, is the STEM. Because guess what? For every one of these, you can create a trap, right? A leprechaun trap, a mermaid trap, a Santa Claus trap, a monster trap, a witch trap, a groundhog trap. So STEM is automatic with these books because you're designing traps. Now, we don't actually design a trap for every book, but a lot of times the kids will design it on paper. They'll come up with a trap, they'll draw about it, we'll talk about it. But some of them, we actually do make physical traps in the classroom as well. Now, these are also great for comprehension. So we do a lot of story elements, we do story maps, we talked about our predictions. Do you think the trap works this time? Another thing I try to get the kids to do is, why did the trap not work? What could you have done better? So we try to get them to do some higher order thinking, a little bit of problem solving as well. So got our story maps, we can do beginning, middle, and end, first, next, then last. We can do the plot. So great for story elements, great for predictions, and also great for grammar and writing. So pretty much for every book, How to Catch book that we read, we'll do an adjective lesson to describe the character. So the Easter Bunny, he was small, he was smart, he was a hard worker, he was sneaky, he was funny. So we try to do some adjectives for all of that, so get some grammar in. We also incorporate writing. And one of the things that we love about the books is the consistency, right? And you can really make your lessons pretty consistent when you use them, so the kids can focus on the content and not, different lessons or activities. So for every book, we do a if I caught writing lesson. So if you caught the fairy godmother, because there is how to catch a fairy godmother, if you caught the fairy godmother, what would you do? Or if you caught a snowman, what would you do? Or if you caught a dragon or a turkey, what would you do? So if I caught a fairy godmother, I would ask her for candy. I would ask her to teach me how to fly. And so the kids can then write and draw about those. So we get in some writing, we get in some grammar, and we can integrate other subjects. Obviously, you can pull in some science, right? You can even pull in social studies. Like when you do how to catch a dragon, like you could tie that to Lunar New Year, so you're pulling in some social studies. But one of the ways that we integrate another subject is math. And so for every how to catch book, we have a graphing question, which can also lead into opinion writing. So there's another writing there as well. So how to catch a mermaid, the question is, do you like mermaids? And I've got 3 people who said no, so I'm gonna have to work on those kids. Do you like rainbows or unicorns? Here's something else that we're doing with this. We're also doing language development. So the kids, when they're voting for the graph, they come up to the front of the room and they say, I do like mermaids because, or I do not like mermaids because. Or they might say, I like rainbows because, or I like unicorns because. So they're voting, so we're getting the math, but we're also getting that language development in there as well. And then when we're done, we count, we compare, and then the kids do their own graphs, so we're doing data analysis. So hitting a lot of math standards as well. And of course, like we said, lots of STEM opportunities and art. So for every book, we always do a fun art project. Here's a good example of a STEM project for how to catch a leprechaun. I bought plastic gold coins at the Dollar Tree, and they're stacking the gold coins to see how tall their tower can be. How to catch a mermaid, we used dot stickers and made mermaid tails. How to catch a monster, we cut up sponges and they got to paint a monster. So each one of these has some really great STEM and art ideas as well. And finally, and this is one of the things, I love these. We do these several times a year. We don't do big room transformations a lot. We do one big room transformation a year, that's it. But several times throughout the year, we do theme days. And theme days are typically tied around a book or a topic. So we've done Mermaid Day with how to catch a mermaid. We've done Monster Day with how to catch a monster. And so they're really simple days. Like we might put an image on the screen. Like for Mermaid Day, I blew up some balloons. We might have some, our LED lights are colorful to match. And then we just do lots of different things like mermaid math. Like obviously we read how to catch a mermaid. And then everything we do that day is mermaid themed, right? Mermaid phonics, mermaid math, the graphing. We do the mermaid art project. We do a mermaid snack. And so it's just a way to kind of incorporate the book, but making it a whole fun-filled day. Nothing crazy. There's literally zero setup unless I blow up some balloons. Everything else is just things we're already doing. We're just turning them into a themed lesson, like a monster math or a mermaid math, or we do dinosaurs. We've been doing dinosaurs right now, so we're doing that. So that's just a way that we can use the books throughout the entire day to do theme days. So there you have it. That's why we love the How to Catch books. They're great stories, great for vocabulary, comprehension, great to integrate other subjects, language development, and they're just fun and the kids love them. And one other thing I want to point out is one of the things, that's not a good example. One of the things that I like to have the kids doing is focusing on the details. So we'll read it, we'll talk about it, we'll make our predictions, and I'll be like, hey, where's the unicorn? And they'll have to find the unicorn. So it's a good way to get them to focus on details as well. So there you go. That's why we love the How to Catch books. And we also have lots of resources at tksstore.com to use to go along with the How to Catch books. It has lesson plans, comprehension lessons, has the graphing, the grammar lessons, all of those lessons and activities that we are doing, they're all included in our Read It Up resources to go along with the How to Catch books. So thank you, Sourcebooks, for inviting me to be a part of this Elevate virtual session. Thank you, Sourcebooks, for this amazing series of How to Catch books. We love them, and I highly encourage you to bring them into your classroom. Thanks, everybody. It's me.
Hello, my name is Sangma Francis, and I am the author of Wild Speak, which is illustrated by Lexi Vongsnes. Wild Speak follows the journey of two sisters, Cora and Ada, as they go on a nature walk with their mum. And as they travel through the various different landscapes, they look around, they observe, and they conjure words out of the natural setting. So it's a book about language, it's a book about nature, and it's a celebration of both, and the boundless creativity and the imagination of young children. I created the book because I wanted to create an invitation for kids to go out and observe and to think about what they're observing and to be playful with the language they use to communicate that. There's a lot of word creation in there, and I hope a lot of fun to be had for kids that are reading it. So here we have Wild Speak. And in the classroom, I hope that it could be a great springboard for activities in the English class and in art classes. For both, I think there is the potential to go out and take nature walks and sit and observe and think about how we might write the things that we observe. So you might ask kids to describe a tree, but rather than just what they see, they might describe using all of their senses. They can also think about onomatopoeia. If it's hard to come up with adjectives, they might think about sounds and create a sort of visual word poem about the tree and the sounds that they associate with it. The same can be applied for the art class, where they might focus in on certain elements like the bark and the texture of what that looks like, the contours of each leaf, and then pair that with words to create a fun dialogue between image and text. And being a book about the natural world, I think that it opens up to themes about the environment and our natural landscapes, and perhaps it could be a conversation starter about what insects, animals, flora, fauna, trees, flowers that the kids experience on a daily basis, whether it's in the city, something that's poking through the sidewalk, or running up the side of houses. Perhaps it's where they go at the weekend in a park or when they visit family members. Yeah, so that is Wild Speak. I hope that it is a great tool for the classroom, a great read aloud, a way to have fun with the word creation, especially words such as pool fizz, which you might whisper when you're reading it, or ice cream skies, which you might roar. And I hope with all this that it's an inspiration for kids to go out, to observe, to enjoy the natural world and find ways of creatively communicating everything that they experience outside. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope you enjoy Wild Speak. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Kari Lavelle, author of the Butt or Face books. This is the first one, and Revenge of the Butts is the second. These have been so much fun for me to write. I love learning about animals. If you're not familiar with these books, it's a guessing game in the format of a book. And so the reader is asked if it is we'll go to this one. If the picture is a butt or a face. When I'm working with kids, especially younger kids, I have them try to predict what animal it's going to be and see if they can brainstorm what animals it could possibly be. And then from there, we vote with our hands, usually face or butt, or I've also seen butt or face. There's also a worksheet I created that's on my website that kids could write down the animal that they think it is and then write down if they think it's a butt or a face. I wrote these because I read an article in Atlas Obscura about how farmers in Botswana painted eyes on the back of their cattle and found that just by doing that, it confused predators. So I was thinking to myself what that lioness is thinking as she's approaching the cow. Is it a butt? Is it a face? And then feeling confused and just hunting in another area. But that really sparked some curiosity in me, and I started researching other animals. When some different activities and ways to use this book with preschoolers and younger kids or struggling readers. I like that you can break it down and just do the question, butt or face, and being able to identify those letters. If you can probably guess it says butt or face, just if you know the B and the F. And so I didn't show you the answer on this first one, but so on this one, we can ask, is it a butt or a face? And then on the next page, we can find the answer in bold. It's a butt. And so for younger readers, I might just identify this is the QI of a dwarf frog and keep going. I may not get into all the details as I would maybe with older students or on second or third or fourth readings. I would just stick to the question. With older readers, I was a substitute in a 5th grade classroom, and I was working on these books. And so I had them create their own animal and then talk about adaptations and why that animal is the way they are and how that would help them adapt. And then I did a who will win twist that students paired up together, and then they decided who would win with their imaginary animals. So it's a great way to talk about adaptations and other STEM-focused topics that are being taught in the classroom, but do it in a fun and creative way. I also have heard of librarians and teachers spreading this book out over a course of days. So, they do one of the animals, guess it, read about it, and then the next day do the next animal. I've seen it also with even adults playing the game and having them learn more about animal facts in our world. I think that it's also important to know that there's an educator guide from Sourcebooks that is on their website as well as mine. And there's also double-sided bookmarks that you can find the link for that have butt on one side and face on the other. So that could be a fun way to vote. And there's also an event kit on my website that is the same idea. It's a paper plate that kids can color that has butt on one side and face on the other. If you have more ideas on how to use this, I would love to hear about it. And the sky is the limit. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy these books.
Hi, if we don't already know each other, I am Stephanie Higgs, better known on Instagram as Little Miss Gifted, and I am so excited to share with you today one of my new favorite resources for the classroom. So 2 of my biggest passions are classroom or behavior management, and then establishing what we call a neurodiversity affirming classroom. And so when we think about neurodivergence, that simply just means the ways our brains can be wired differently, whether that's ADHD, autism, intellectually gifted, OCD, Tourette's, dyslexia, the list goes on and on. But when we have this classroom full of student brains that are all wired a little bit differently, we call that the neurodiversity of our classroom. So when we think about the school day, it can even be challenging and dysregulating to us as the educators. Think about the neurodiverse makeup of all of your students and how dysregulating our typical day in the classroom can be. So one of the biggest lessons I've learned in some recent research is the idea of co-regulation before self-regulation. And so what that simply means is that we as a class are teaching ourselves all together a few different strategies that we can use to self-regulate before we're expecting students to attempt that on their own. So ultimately, I would find a book like my Calm Down book. This would eventually end up in a calm corner of the classroom. But before I put it there and just hope that students knew what to do with it, I would use this in an introductory lesson as a read aloud, and we would call that co-regulation. So all of us would sit together. We would go through this book page by page. And what I love about the Calm Down book is that it features numerous different strategies for self-regulation. So even this beautiful cover, you'll notice, has all of these different pieces of confetti that fall in a slow and calming way. So one regulation tool that I like to teach students with that page is to think about all of those things falling down in the jar, like all of our different thoughts, right? Sometimes we're filled with thoughts and energy. Energy is a big piece of neurodivergence as well. And when we're trying to regulate ourselves, we want that to sift down slowly. Now, I am a sparkle queen. So this happens to be my favorite page because students are able to take kind of a cloudy day and find some rainbows and sunshine within. So this happens to be my favorite page. However, in terms of all the strategies that I like to teach students, another favorite is square breathing. This is a great technique for self-regulation, and I love that this text models explicitly how that should be done. And then we as teachers can sit with all of our students and practice that co-regulation technique together. And then I have to tell you, I have piloted this book with several groups of my students. This is everyone's favorite page. If your students are dysregulated, nothing will calm them down quicker than getting to pet the puppy. This is the softest puppy I've ever felt in my life. And so this is a great way that students can self-regulate as well. So just to refresh, I want to make sure that we all are kind of learning kind of these new skills in this neurodiversity affirming classroom environment. And so teaching co-regulation before self-regulation is really important. And so that might mean when we come back from lunch or from recess or from PE and all of us are really excited and energized, that wouldn't be a time we would do a brain break, right? We're doing a brain break when students are restless and they've been sitting for too long. But a great strategy would be to co-regulate when we notice that the energy is high throughout the classroom and we want to kind of calm that back down. We're going to explicitly model that through a variety of strategies. One of my favorites is my Calm Down book. And then once we've explicitly modeled and we feel like students have some expertise in a couple of self-regulation strategies, this fabulous book and a couple of other favorites could go into a calm down corner of the classroom where when students identify, hey, I'm a little bit dysregulated, I might need just a second, they can actually kind of self-appoint a time to go sit, to take that moment, to kind of get that zen back, and to self-regulate through a variety of explicit practices that we as educators have taught and introduced. Now, it can be tricky to do those on the spot. So once again, I'm so thankful to have a resource like my Calm Down Classroom as part of my classroom library. My students are obsessed. I know yours will be too.